Hey, I'm Sam, welcome to Brickwall Pictures. Today's review is for the South Korean drama Peppermint Candy from 1999. This is a film from writer-director Lee Chang-dong, whose most recent film you might be familiar with since it broke through to significantly wider audiences than his previous work, Burning. I almost reviewed Burning when it came out, but I never got around to it. Regardless, it's a great thriller that just got better and better upon reflection days after watching. Burning was South Korea's submission to the Best Foreign Film category at the Academy Awards that year. It wasn't nominated because the Academy is clueless when it comes to great South Korean films, but it was at least shortlisted for one of the nomination slots. As crazy as it sounds, Burning was actually the first South Korean film to ever make the shortlist. The country never had a single nomination, despite consistently putting out some of the world's best cinema. That all changed the following year when Parasite was nominated and subsequently won. But we're here to talk about Peppermint Candy. This review will be spoiler-free, by the way, so if you haven't seen the film yet, don't worry, you're safe here. Peppermint Candy is a character study on a man named Young-ho. The film puts his life under the microscope in 6 isolated chapters, told in reverse chronological order. The film opens with him committing suicide by standing in front of an oncoming train, then progresses further and further back through his life to give you a complete picture of who this man was and the moments that led to him taking his own life so many years later. It's rare to see reverse chronological storytelling in a straight drama like this. It's a structure that's typically more at home amongst thrillers, but it works extremely well in Peppermint Candy. Some critics around the time of the film's release compared it to Christopher Nolan's Memento, but Peppermint Candy actually came out a year earlier than Memento, 1999 versus 2000. Peppermint Candy never uses its unorthodox scene structuring as a gimmick or as any kind of stylistic flourish to distract from the drama. Quite the opposite, in fact. This reverse chronological structure is perfectly suited to the story being told. The form and substance elevate each other. There are many great moments where the backwards scene ordering creates a powerful dramatic revelation, where there wouldn't have been one had the scenes been ordered conventionally. The reverse order recontextualizes moments, actions, and even character traits that were shown earlier in a deeply thought-provoking way. A moment in an earlier chapter where Young-ho playfully growls like a dog at a child takes on an entirely different meaning when we learn about his past and see him growl the same way in a context that could not be a further departure from where we saw him do it previously, which is actually in the future. Young-ho is played by Sol Kyung-gu, who is the same actor who starred in Memoir of a Murderer, which is a film I previously reviewed, so you can check the description for a link to that video to learn more. This guy is a serious talent, and Peppermint Candy makes for the perfect showcase of his abilities. He puts the entire range of human emotion on display in Peppermint Candy. Young-ho is an extremely complicated character, and Sol Kyung-gu delivers an appropriately layered performance worthy of the subject matter. Any film that checks in with a character at so many vastly different stages in their life is sure to be a challenge, and Sol Kyung-gu surpasses the already lofty expectations from a part like this. From the opening scene of the film till the freeze-frame ending, he is absolutely magnetic. This is an all-time great performance in my book, and I do not use those words lightly. Lee Chang-dong's direction is restrained yet varied. His camera is more often than not utilizing slow, creeping movements that place full emphasis on the performers in front of his lens. But then there are moments where this elegant camera work is offset by striking and unorthodox movement. These two styles sound like they might clash, but they never do. Lee Chang-dong has led quite an interesting life. He made a name for himself as an author and didn't turn his hand toward filmmaking until he was middle-aged. He was 43 when his first directed film came out. I think his authorial background is something that can be seen in his films. There's a certain novelistic quality to the writing and general storytelling in Peppermint Candy, and I would argue in Burning as well. Lee Chang-dong has also had some pretty crazy involvements with the South Korean government as well. He was the country's Minister of Culture for a time, and later on, he wound up being blacklisted by the government. If you look at his filmography, you'll notice a pretty significant gap between his films Poetry and Burning, 8 years. This gap was not self-imposed. It was because of this blacklisted status that he had. Peppermint Candy's 6 chapters are each connected through title cards and through recurrent train track interludes, individual shots that progress backwards along train tracks from the POV of the back of the train. These train track interludes represent the act of traveling backwards through time. The footage is playing in reverse, but you might not even notice that until one of the final interludes when pedestrians can be seen moving backwards alongside the tracks. Kyung-ho's line before being struck by the train at the start, "I want to go back," perfectly fits this reverse storytelling approach and encapsulates the entire heady theme of the film into a singular moment of both speech and action. It's a brilliant case of the substance and form of a story coalescing perfectly. The train imagery isn't confined to just the chapter divisions. Each segment manages to integrate the presence of trains without ever drawing too much attention to it or feeling anything other than perfectly natural. Everything always circles back around to train tracks, just as Kyung-ho's depressive thoughts always circle back to these defining moments in his life. It's extra fitting to the character's headspace, given the trains are locked on tracks, unable to veer off course. It brings up philosophical questions of destiny and free will. Kyung-ho screams, "I want to go back," as he commits suicide. We as viewers travel back to the past Kyung-ho so badly wants to relive, but he can't. We are able to examine what he wants to change and imagine how he might act differently, but he can't. It's too late. We might be seeing these events in reverse chronological order, but that doesn't change his eventual fate. His life is still locked on these rails. The train imagery provides a nice narrative through line to anchor all of the drama. Again, the form fits the substance perfectly. The way the shot from the back of Kyung-ho's military truck as it gets farther and farther away from his love Sun Im perfectly mimics those train transition shots we've been seeing throughout the film, and it's just such a beautiful way to tie that all together. And lastly, the fact that the defining moment of his trauma from his past happens in the middle of an abandoned rail yard in the middle of the night in a war zone is just the cherry on top of the thematic sundae. Peppermint Candy is a brilliant film, one of the best I've seen in quite a while, and I highly recommend it. Check out my reviews for other South Korean films, subscribe to Brickwall Pictures. I'll see you next time. Bye.